You just made a really good point. Are those panels put on correctly? Are there going to be damages that are going to happen to my house because they were put on incorrectly? How much wattage is actually on my roof? I mean, that's a huge factor too. Welcome to Ask Alexis, the space where we dive deep into all things real estate, business, life, and fitness. And I can't wait to bring you even more value. Now, let's get started. Hey, Mike, thank you so much.
Yeah.
Tell me a little bit about yourself. Who is Mike and what do you do?
So I'm a solar guy, right? I mean, I guess that's an easy way to say it, but we do solar in the non-traditional sense. We do education. We work with real estate agents primarily. We do through the education and the lunch and learns. We just have built a referral network essentially. So we don't door knock or anything like that. We decided, hey, you guys have a lot of problems with us.
Right.
Right. So let's see if we can fill some of those gaps and see what opportunities sit there.
How did you get here? How did Mike stumble into solar? What'd you do before this?
Great question. I was a personal trainer. I ran a personal training, small gym up in Sparata, and thought therapy and health was going to be the route, and just had some life circumstances and relationships that led me to I should try something else. And so I had a buddy who actually was a personal trainer with me for a while who had left and gone to solar. And so I got the text message, hey, you got to come try solar. You got to come try solar. Like, the money's super great. And I was like, oh man, I served a Mormon mission, right? Like, I know door knocking. It's either all in or not. And I'm not sure I'm all in. So this moment in life really gave me the opportunity to say, okay, let's give it a shot.
Your back was against the wall, huh?
Back was kind of against the wall, and I was like,
that's usually those moments.
Let's do it, and never turned back.
No, I love that. And I think that even your first vision was a really good vision. It just maybe not for that time, or it ran its course. But definitely fitness and life and getting people into that as well is something that I think that we should all be a part of. Like, I'm not saying that you have to go get your body ready for competition or things of that nature, but you have to get up. You have to move. Like, either you move it or you lose it. Yeah. And that's a lot with our mobility and everything.
Right.
So it's insane. I have a couple questions about you and solar education, right?
Let's do it.
Why isn't solar education required? Like, why is that not a requirement for me to know about solar, but I'm responsible for selling somebody's home? And solar contracts, they're really tricky. They can be. Not always, but in some instances they can.
Yeah. I mean, goodness, real estate contracts are way harder, right? I think it's just the real estate agents that I bump into, it's like, hey, I'm already doing so much. I don't want to do this in addition to, right? But the question of why isn't there like an educational requirement? I mean, that's a loaded question, right?
Yeah,
I don't know, right? We could go conspiracy. We could be like, I mean, because if they ran background checks on our industry, how many would we lose if we did that, right? If they required us to invest in ourselves $299 to go to Key Solar Realty School or Key School, right, for solar, how many people would be like, I'm not going to spend money to invest in myself, right? Like, how many are just like, oh, I just go knock doors and I can do it day one and potentially make money? I'll do that, right? So there's a lot of our workforce and our industry makes a lot of money. And where does all that money funnel to? I don't know. I'm not going to say anything that I would regret, right? But but I can imagine, right? It is a big industry. It's impacting an even bigger industry, and yet we don't regulate on it. So you do the math, right? Like, why?
That brings me to another good topic too. How many different contracts are there for leasing or for solar? Because you can lease, you can own. Like, what are all the different options that somebody has?
Yeah, I mean, obviously you can purchase the system cash, right? And then a lot of people say lease, right? And leases have been around for a long time, back in the Solar City days.
Do they make sense? Leases?
Do leases make sense? Goodness gracious, I mean, in my opinion, no, right? And we don't see a lot of leases nowadays anyways. We're one of a few states who offers a power purchase agreement.
Okay.
There are some states that are like, we don't want that trash in our state, so they don't allow it. But
well, it sounds like trash in theory, right? Because you could devaluize a home through having leased solar. in certain instances, because if somebody is selling their home, right, and it's leased, who's gonna pay out that lease, right? Is that gonna be the seller? Is that gonna be the buyer? Are they gonna have to go down on price? Is that buyer even gonna be qualified if that solar is tacked on to the purchase price? Pretty much, could $200 take them over, and now they don't get qualified, right? So there's certain factors.
They're great factors. I mean, again, I think lease was an early option to say you don't have to take a loan. Right. No out of pocket, no upfront, no nothing. And then the power purchase agreement rolled in. And in my personal opinion, currently, if you know how to negotiate it, is probably a better contract. And that comes from the stance of a real estate agent, right? Warranties, transferability, et cetera. And then you have the traditional loan contract. So those 4 options are kind of the ones that you could bump into: cash, lease, PPA, loan. Yeah. Those are there are different.
And you're a fan of the PPA?
Yeah, I tend to lean to PPAs because, again, for a while we were offering a concierge transfer service.
Okay.
So you could call me and say, I got a listing. I don't want to deal with the solar at all. And we would take over and we would instruct the buyers and the sellers and walk them through the process, right?
The middleman.
And the middleman, right. We just mediate the process. And the PPAs were always the easiest.
Really?
Right? It was a one call, that's all, right? If let's just say you had a Sunrun. Okay.
Right.
And it's a PPA, and you call Sunrun, and you get the transfer finished, and everybody signs the documents. It's done, and not only is the financial ownership changed, but so is all the warranties.
Really?
Right? It's a one call, that's all. Whereas if you have a loan, you're dealing with the bank, you're getting the ownership of the loan transferred, and then that has nothing to do with all the warranties. You got to call the installer, you got to call the inverter manufacturer. So there's more processes to that, and because they don't have anything to do with a UCC filing on the home, sometimes agents forget or don't even know that they exist, and so it doesn't get done. So it can be more complicated with a loan. And then financially, loans are different as well. So.
Right. No, that's all good things. Get a PPA. No, just
Get the right PPA. Escalators are negotiable. Where they start on price is negotiable, right? Things that homeowners don't typically know, and solar agents don't really want you to know, right? There's a lot of commission baked into those escalators. So,
and what is an escalator for anybody that wouldn't know or is thinking about solar?
Sure. So a power purchase agreement is just like what you have with NV Energy. It's an agreement to purchase the power, right? NV Energy's average kilowatt hour, and you can Google this, okay? Just Google average kilowatt hour price in Nevada is 15 cents, right? And so a PPA would be like, hey, what if instead of 15 cents with NV Energy, we set you up for 13 cents, right? 13 cents per kilowatt hour.
Nice.
But it goes up 2.5% every year. That's an escalator. Right. So those 2.5% escalators are the most common you'll bump into. And of course, the industry would like that to continue to seem like the norm, but it is something that you can negotiate. You can have no escalator if you negotiate right. Your starting price for those cubes, that 13 cents, could be a little higher, but at least it's locked in.
At a locked-in rate where it doesn't fluctuate, where you could come to the point where now you're paying more than the original cost.
Right, exactly.
And then you're like, oh, I got. Yeah, you did.
Yeah, exactly. We were reviewing a contract today. It must have been a year ago, because a year and a half ago, the prices on your energy bill were like 17 cents per kilowatt hour. This agent from an undisclosed energy company or a solar company, 15 cents is where he started them at with a 2.5 escalator. And now, if you look at your bill, it's gone down. It's 10 cents, 10, 11 cents. And so it's like exactly like you said, they're paying 4 cents more, and it's guaranteed to go up 2.5%, which I still believe NV Energy will go up significantly.
Right, but not.
But right now,
extent, like that's already accelerated over.
Right, and that contract's in a home transaction right now. The home's being sold, and the buyer's like, I don't want to take this over. And it's like, I don't blame you. Right? You're paying more for energy. So.
And what can somebody do if they are in that situation, right? They're in contract, they're buying something, they go over those solar documents, and they're like, oh, well, hold on. I don't know. They just walk away from that sale, right? Like there's something really...
Yeah, if there's no financial negotiation to happen, right, payoff or payout or anything like that, then yeah, you're probably just going to walk away from the house, right? There's no taking it off. I get a lot of agents who will call and be like, we actually just don't want the solar. And it's like, Okay, is there still a financial contract? Yeah, they just take it off. It's like, no, they can't. Like, you can't just take panels off because you don't want it. If there's a contract.
Right. That seller's already agreed to somebody that with this home,
Right.
it stays and I get paid.
Yeah.
So.
Yep, exactly.
Doesn't matter who's the
It
owner.
doesn't matter.
It's with the home.
Exactly.
It's not with the owner. So that's insane. What should a homeowner do if their solar installer goes out of business?
Oh, I mean, you could call a company like ours, right? So we're service forward. We're
And what's your company? Because I don't think we know what your
Solar Certified Pro.
Solar
Certified Pro. And then there are third-party warranties, right? So a company who's willing to basically like be an insurer and hire subcontractors for you or find you subcontractors and pay the bill because they're your insurance company at this point, to give you the warranty that you lost when the installer went out of business. And so that's one way. Or I have also seen some attorneys, I mean, this is going to become more common, but some attorneys will take cases where installer went out of business, homeowner signed the contract being promised an installer warranty, like for the roof and stuff, and now it's gone. And so these attorneys are going after the banks to either reduce the loan or get it totally wiped out.
Really?
Yeah, I mean, I get it. It's a cash grab for attorneys, but some of those cases will pay out.
That's insane because I don't know if you have the number on the top of your head, but do you know how many solar companies have went under in the Valley?
In the Valley? Goodness. I mean, a lot. Right.
Because people are substantially affected by this because solar was a really big hot commodity, especially when it started like coming out. Everybody was pretty much building a solar business.
Right.
During that time, like that's the business that you were building. You were building a solar business.
Yeah. You know, a lot have gone out of business, but then there have also been a lot who just moved markets. So Nevada had a law passed in 2024, January 2024. It went into effect saying anyone selling has to be a W-2. So they took away kind of like that benefit of being a 1099.
Yeah.
And now the companies who are supposed to be employing these people are like, whoa, do we want a W-2? A ton of sales reps?
That's a lot of liability.
Right. And so they didn't go out of business. They left Nevada. They're like, they don't have this law in, Phoenix or in Utah or something like that. So we'll head to a new market. Maybe we'll come back if this gets figured out. But that still left a lot of homeowners without what's called a workmanship warranty, or at least someone to fulfill it.
Right.
Yeah. So you don't quote me on this, but probably 15 to 20% of our installers in the last year and a half
have kind of whittled away. That's a lot. No, that's a substantial amount when you really think about it. Like, I mean, 10% to really anything can be substantial if you look at it. So
for sure.
I know that I've already asked this, but how does solar affect the sale of a home? How have you seen? I guess we'll just do another storytelling time of just to really set in.
It's a good question. Solar sales reps want you to believe it adds value to your home.
That's what I wanted.
Yeah, and it's not something that anybody should be saying because we don't know, right? We simply don't know.
The extent of it, right?
Right. There are some studies out there and some articles that you can look up. By and large, every appraiser that I've ever talked to says it has to be paid off because if it's not paid off, it's not owned by the homeowner. So why would it give value to it?
Right, because then the buyer's just taking over that payment. They're pretty... Right, I can see that.
Yeah, so it has to be paid off. And then in that case, I've talked to an appraiser or a real estate agent who uses an appraiser who just gives it 10 grand. That's it. 10 grand added value. That's all. It doesn't matter how big, small, anything. And then there are articles, like you can find an article on Zillow that says 4.5% of the home value, right? Then you have appraisers who say there are some outside solar appraisers. If they come in, they'll do like a specific report for it and maybe you'll get even more. So it's super hit and miss. And then, I stand up in my class and say, there are some installers out there that are making your house worse, right? Those nuts and those bolts, they're going into the trusses, and if they're not doing a good job, it could be worse for your roof. So I don't know. There's no blanket statement. There's no right or wrong, I guess, at this point until the appraisers really figure it out.
Right, what the actual value of it, and I'm sure that there's a lot more to it than just panels on the roof, right? Because you just made a really good point. Are those panels put on correctly? Are there going to be damages that are going to happen to my house because they were put on incorrectly? How much wattage is actually on my roof? I mean, that's a huge factor too.
Right.
If the bill really isn't affected or the solar panels aren't up to par of the actual power that they're supposed to produce, then they're pretty much just useless and they're just shiny objects that are on top of your roof. And they really don't provide any value, whether they're paid off or not.
Right. There are a couple companies I know of, T&K Electric, Sun Solar Solutions, where they actually try to say, hey, you should choose us because of our install. And then they talk about like the nerdy nuts and bolts and stuff. And homeowners don't really look at it. They don't really think about it. But that's the most important stuff, right? They put the bolts in. They have the anchors and the racking. And then they flash and seal it and stuff like that. And I have seen roofs where the company didn't do any of that. It's just a big glob of EcoSeal over a nut. And it's like, okay, well, hopefully that works. But there are some companies that do really good workmanship.
Work.
Yeah.
And even for, I know this is just going off a little bit of subject, but like pigeons, love them. And to be in that area, like I'll drive around neighborhoods and I'll see people with solar panels. And then the pigeons will be at the ones with the solar panels. So I don't know if that's what that person anticipated. But they can even mess up the solar panels by being up there and nesting and doing whatever they do because they're not supposed to be inflected like that. So
right, yeah. We
that's
inspect.
Mother Nature.
Yeah, we inspect, and they don't tend to like chew on wires, but the nests and just the living of life underneath those panels can disrupt and be such a pain in the butt. It's such a pain. It's annoying. They coo, they poop, it runs down, it falls on the ground. It's fun.
It's a messy situation.
Super fun.
Why do you focus on education instead of being a traditional door-to-door salesman? Like what a typical solar rep is, right?
Yeah. So when I started this journey down my own path, it was because I believed in relationships. Right. I believed in trusting relationships and trying to earn the business rather than just like sell the business.
I like that.
Yeah. And so not most. I mean, my manager at the company I was working at was like, didn't like that. Right. Just hurry up. Right. It's a numbers game. Right. And that's what they.
But it can be.
Yeah, it can be. But I mean, I believe that a relationship I'm developing now may not pay off for 9 months. That's okay. That's what we're here for. Right. And so education made sense. We had some great contacts over at Coldwell Banker kind of say, hey, these lunch and learns that you're paying to have the bagels there and have 5 minutes of speak time. It's great, but if you went to the division and sat down and really kind of like structured an educational class, then they would come for the credit and you'd have an audience for a while. And so when we started doing that, it was like, holy cow, who else in the solar industry can capture your attention for 3 hours, right? You're lucky to get 5 minutes on the doorstep.
Yeah, no kidding.
Yeah, so 3 hours and it was like, let's make it really good. Let's try to do the very best to be transparent and honest and upfront and give them bits and pieces that the solar industry wouldn't want them to have. And it really just, it did exactly what we wanted to do. The relationships have been great, and we work hard to maintain the integrity of them. So it's been a really good referral network. Not having to knock a single door in my entire career since I left that company. Yeah, I'll do that all day.
No, it's great because, I mean, even to your previous boss, like he's not wrong, right? This is a very numbers game. It's the same way for agents too. Like I could be on the phones all day, and if I make a certain amount of calls in that day, then I am bound to reach a certain amount of contacts, and then it varies depending on your close rate and how you articulate yourself. But if it's not going after what I believe or what I know that I can provide true value, like I'll use land deals. Like I know about land, but I'm not an expert in land. So if I go after that clientele, I'm doing a disservice. But it's a numbers game. I could capture them. Should I capture them? Should they be in my net? Probably not, because I'm not going to be able to service them the way that I'm going to be able to service a residential client, because I know about residential.
Right.
I know the ins and out of the values of a home, investment strategies, first-time home buyers, getting the maximum amount for selling a home. So I'm not going to go after land. I'm going to go with after what makes sense, like what you're doing.
Yeah.
Educating us and consumers, that's what matters.
Yeah. Let me ask you this. As a real estate agent, just objectively kind of stepping back and observing, would you say that the agents who appreciate the industry and their career and have a lot of success the most are those who cold call, or those who have a really warm network of friends and maybe they were in the industry, they just know a lot of people? Who would you say seems to have business rolling in and kind of, I don't know.
I think that working in SOI is great, but in terms, that agent may need to cold call because let's say they're new to the area, right? Like let's put me in New York. I would have to cold call.
Absolutely.
I would have to do outbound reaching. But then once I get to a certain point and I curate my SOI, then I'm going to work from my SOI, and then I'm going to be able to cater to them to the utmost.
Yeah.
So it really varies, right? So there are agents that just do prospecting all day and they never work their SOI. And those are the ones that I feel sorry for because they're constantly chasing new business and they may be good at it. But having sustainable business and people that trust you and know that you have their best intentions at heart and want to do business with you again, those are the ones that are going to make your business thrive. And ultimately, you're going to get that sense of fulfillment instead of just treating everybody like a transaction.
Right. And I agree, and I feel the same way. And I guess I'm lucky to have been here for 10 years now in Las Vegas. But there's a book called The E-Myth. Mm-hmm. And in probably the last 3/4 of the book, he talks a lot about it's easier to sell a customer you already have than to go find a new customer.
Oh, absolutely.
Right. And so I feel like most solar representatives are cold callers. Right. And because it's a one and done sale, unless they're starting to focus on service, like they have to go find the one and done sales, the one and done sales, the one and done sales again and again. It's called carrying buckets, right? If you want water, you got to go to this river, get the bucket and come back. But if you stop, no more water. Right. And so I'm more like what you're saying. Once you're established,
then you rework that SOI.
Work exactly. And get your pipeline going. That way you wake up with some referrals rather than where am I finding it today?
Well, here's a real estate fun fact. So when you have an SOI, right? So let's just call it 1,500 people, right? 1,500 people that you've made contact with, whether they've sold or bought with you. It's just people that you've come in contact with. 10% of those people move every single year. Now, to that point, if you are prospecting and going after new business, which is fine because everybody has goals and everybody's doing what they're doing, and maybe their prospecting expires and they actually really want to help these people because they want to get their properties sold. That's what I do. Those are the people that I go after because I know that they want to sell, but they had an issue. Right. But anyway, if 10% of your SOI is going to move every year and you drop the ball on not reaching out to them, that is 150 clients that won't sell or buy real estate with you.
Right.
That's
exactly.
a lot of that.
It
I
is.
mean, even on a low end, even on an end of $300,000 a house, and that's way under the median budget of Las Vegas. That's insane.
Right.
But there's time and time again that people don't know how to curate or niche down or know what they're doing, who they're doing it for.
Yeah. And I appreciate that about real estate agents. I think once I started rubbing shoulders with more agents instead of, more solar reps, it was like, hey, these people look into marketing. They look into drip campaigns. They look into reaching out and touching base with past clients. There's something to learn here. So I appreciate getting into real estate for that. Like, definitely seen a lot more professionalism as far as how to run a business.
And this is a business, just like you.
Oh, yeah.
This is, and anything that you do that isn't tied to somebody else's business is your own business. Yep. Whether it's a lemonade stand, you're making beads, or whatever it is, as long as you take it as a business and treat it like such, it'll be beautiful. It's just a lot of growing pain. I mean, I'm still doing it. I'm still learning, and every day. I don't think there's ever going to be a moment where you just are like, okay, that's it. That's all we have to learn. No, it's a consistent the markets change, the days change. What works today doesn't work tomorrow.
Right.
It's insane.
Yeah.
It's really go-getter kind of industry.
For sure.
If you could change one thing about the way solar is sold, what would you change?
Oh, man. What would I change? I would change how educated homeowners are, right?
Okay.
Like, because isn't that when you have a client in real estate and they know a lot, but they've chose to work with you, isn't that an easier client to deal with? Mm-hmm. Like they know a lot, right? So if I always tell the classes when I teach them, I'm like, this class is actually, intended for the people, and I'd love to be teaching this on a hill in the park with 1,500 homeowners instead of you guys, but I don't have that luxury, right? So, because if they were smarter, our job would be so much easier. Right?
And what they were actually signing up for.
Because solar's not scary. It's a decent product
Beneficial.
if it's done right. But it does require homeowners to get a little bit educated, right? Do you know what you buy from NV Energy?
No.
No, right? What do you buy from the gas station?
My gas that makes my car go vroom.
Right. In what form? Gallons, right?
Yeah.
You know that. Everybody knows that, right? But you don't know how you buy energy and in what form it is.
No.
Right.
Absolutely none.
They're called kilowatt hours, but nobody knows that. And so the lingo of energy is just different. It's new to people, and we certainly don't invest in it because it's typically been pretty cheap. So we don't really care to understand it.
Right.
But now people are. They're starting to want to understand it. And there's just a lot of homeowners that are not educated. So solar people can take advantage of that. That would be the one change. I'd be like,
Transparency.
Buyer representation for solar would be awesome. Right, people who actually buy to
agreement.
protect a buyer.
Or like a fiduciary duty.
Exactly, yeah, which we do not have. Right, we are not. That would be great. Or just like, hey, before you buy solar, you have to take this test and present a certificate that you, the homeowner, went through and understand these things.
Right.
So that when you buy intelligently and don't get taken advantage of. I don't know. Maybe that's putting too much responsibility on the homeowner, but it would help.
But you just want transparency with the consumer on what they're signing, because if you are a consumer and you bought a leased solar and you think that it's adding value to your house, I'm going to tell you right now that it's not. You could honestly lose money from your home because of your leased solar, or you could actually lose a deal from that same solar.
Right. If they're not going to regulate on us to have an educational requirement, then homeowners would be smart to like do some self-regulation, be like, I need to know the truth.
Their own due diligence.
Yeah. But you send them to the source, and hey, they're right back at us. Right?
Well, I don't know if it's so much on the homeowners to have the knowledge. Like, that's great. Like, they should have knowledge in what they consume, but a lot of people purchase things that they have no knowledge of, and they only purchase it because they like it, which is fine. Like, they don't need to know how the sausage is made in order to eat the sausage, because I'm sure if they knew how it was made, they wouldn't eat the sausage.
Right,
So,
right. Yeah.
Everything's with a grain of salt. But I guess my last question to you would be, where do you see yourself taking this?
I mean, I don't know. As far as we can get before they hate us enough to try to shut us down, right? Because that's what we're doing. I mean, we're exposing the truth in these classes, and so we'll see. But we're approved to teach our education classes here, Arizona, Utah, and we're working on our certificate or our class approval in California right now. Mm-hmm. And so it's a wonderful niche that we have to educate real estate agents and build the trust. So I don't know. I mean, some of our services will eventually and are already probably growing, like solar inspections, because home inspectors don't and can't do them. So
No,
some of those,
a good one.
yeah, some of those services could go as high as we want it to, but we'll see. I mean, I'm just glad I still have passion for it, right? I'm still glad that I feel like we're fighting a good fight to protect people. So we'll see. Yeah.
No, it's not. We'll see.
Yeah.
We'll definitely,
Yeah.
it'll be. As long as you want, it'll be. However long it takes, I guess that can really vary dependent on you or your team or how things are portrayed to be. But
20 years unless my kid wants to take it over.
I know. Right. You're like, you must finish this fight. But no, solar is very new. It's just like HOAs, right? Agents should, one, really know about HOA certs and actually understanding what those documents are, but just as much as they should understand what solar is, because especially in our valley, we have sun all day. It's not like we're in Alaska where one person has solar. Like, right. I don't know the statistics of it, but just drive a neighborhood and see how many people have solar panels in that neighborhood. And it's a lot. It's at least 30% or more of a neighborhood sometimes.
Yeah. No, absolutely. I mean, there's a statistic that we found, and it's a fun little question we ask in class. It's like, does anybody have any idea how many single-family homes installed solar in Nevada, right? So it includes Reno, in 2024.
What was the number?
What would you guess?
Felt like that year wasn't as fast as what it started off with, but I'll still say 30,000 units.
Okay. So above 100,000.
Over 100?
Yeah.
At the height of solar, what was do you know that number? I know that was a long time ago.
I'm not sure, but we're breaking records, right? We've had a lull over the last little while. We've had a lull, but up until Q3 of 2024, we were still setting records. So it's just a lot. And a lot of, so in the class, it's like, all right, agents, and you're taking this class and sure you're going to get credit and you don't like solar, but it's like 100,000. Remember, that's just 100,000 new headaches you got to deal with because there are 100,000 new contracts out there you're going to have to deal with. And next year there'll be another, So again, I'd have to search that statistic to make sure it's fact, but I looked hard to find it. And I mean, it's a lot. So agents need to take a vested interest in what's happening with solar. How do I deal with solar? Is it beneficial, not beneficial? And how can we advise? Right. How can we advise homeowners?
Because we are advisors.
You are. And when you sell a house and someone says, I think I'm going to get solar. And they say, okay, do your research. It's like, don't do your research. Like, come back to me, and you guys can work with us. And we'll try to make sure, even if it's not us that they were to sell or buy from.
Right.
Let's make sure that the contract they are going to sign
educational
is
purpose.
Good. Yeah, exactly. So it's going to happen. With you or without you.
It's going to happen.
And it's going to be against you pretty much if it's not with you.
All right, I lied. One last question.
Hit it.
What would you tell younger Mike? What's one piece of advice that you would give to your younger self?
I mean, this is more in the personal development realm, but I would say we're not trying to be motivated. We're trying to be disciplined. Right. I lived a lot of my life doing things when I was motivated to do them rather than realizing I'm never going to get there if it's not just like, I don't wake up and want to go to the gym. I don't wake up and want to eat the right food. I don't, go to sleep and not want to have a glass of wine or whatever. I don't, or I do because I'm disciplined to do it. So it'd be like accept and embrace discipline now, earlier on, so that later life is a lot easier.
Motivation is just like almost like the fun, I don't want to say drug on here, but
it's dopamine.
It's that's where I wanted to use dopamine, but drug came out. Sorry,
drug's a better word. Drug's a better word for it. It's true.
But it's true. Because when you feel that motivation, you're like, killed it. Gonna go kill it. I'm gonna go do it. Yeah. And then those days where that motivation just it isn't there because we're humans. You're like, no,
exactly.
Not gonna go kill it. Not gonna go do it. But those are the days that I think that you must go do it.
Yeah. What about you? What would you say to yourself?
To my younger self, live now.
That's good. I like that.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Because there's too many times that I'm trying to overcompensate for the past doings of past Alexis. And yes, they're great learning lessons. And yes, they really did happen. And yes, she sucked. But they just are weighted baggages on me. And I just need to focus more on now and what makes sense now and how can I improve now.
Yeah.
Because I can improve past like I have now, but I can't just solely focus on it.
Sure.
So.
No, that's good advice. Live in the now.
Live in the now. What's your guys' piece of advice that you guys would give to yourself? Leave it in the comments. Thank you so much for coming on Ask Alexis. Thank you so much, Mike, for coming on and teaching us about solar. Where can our viewers find you if they're interested in learning more about solar?
Yeah, we're easy. SolarCertifiedPro.com or Solar Certified Pro Instagram. Those two places are our best bet.
You heard it here. SolarCertifiedPro.com or go on Instagram at Solar
Certified
Pro on Instagram. Thank you so much, and I'll see you next week. Welcome to Ask Alexis, the space where we dive deep into all things real estate, business, life, and fitness. And I can't wait to bring you even more value.